try and fit a HuMa regulator to an FAC or export R10 in real time. This is a 22 or 22 or 5.5mm. This is the HuMa regulator for the R10. Normally the pressure that I've set them to is written on the actual bag, just for your own reference. Right, obviously this has been removed from the stock. It's been checked to make sure it's clear, there's no pellets in the breech. Magazines out, air bottles off. There are videos on my channel that show you how to take the action out the stock and also how to take the bottle off the R10 safely. So that should be fine, no problems there. Right, the first thing you want to do is get hold of a 5mm Allen key, which fits in there between the bottle adapter and the what we call the toast rack. Hold this and then loosen that. They are sometimes pretty tight. If you don't have a ball-ended Allen key, you will need to obviously do this sort of quarter turn, pull it out, turn it around, put it in, you know. But anyway, that should be enough. Then that just pulls off. You can take that off, it just slots in. Right, that is the regulator block. That's the actual regulator, bottle adapter, pressure gauge, fill gauge. If you are having problems with leaks out of the fill port or out of the firing valve, I do have videos on my channel that show you how to fix those. Right, that's the regulator. You'll notice on the export models there is no black anti-tamper cap like you have on the low power models. There's a number of ways you can do this. If you're going to be taking this out and throwing it in the bin, then obviously you don't have to worry about protecting it with leather. I'm just going to put a piece of leather around it. You could use lead or any other thing, and you could use some soft jaw pliers. I'm just going to use some water pump pliers or plumber's pliers or whatever you want to call them, and you literally just unscrew the regulator. Like that. Right. This is one of the newer regulators, not that it makes any difference because it's coming out. Then in here you'll see there's a brass bit that's still in there. You can often get it out just by tapping, and out comes the brass bit. There's an O-ring, a ball bearing and a spring, and you'll notice there's still a brass bit inside there which needs to come out. If you just use a pokey device, a little screwdriver or a chopstick or whatever, that little brass bit comes out, which is the little retainer for the ball and the spring. Right, now in the bottom of this hole, it does help if you use a torch, there is another O-ring. That O-ring needs to come out. Make sure it comes out. I get a lot of people going, oh, I can't screw my regulator in all the way. There's something wrong with my HuMa regulator. Normally, if you can't screw the regulator in all the way, it's because you haven't removed this O-ring. So remove it and save yourself a lot of time. Then you want to give everything a nice clean. Make sure it's all clean, degreased, no bits of fluff or burrs or anything else in there. Get all that out the way. Right, then you get your HuMa regulator. Make sure that's all nice and clean. You can put a drop of something like Abbey SM50 lube on the regulator, just a very small drop on the O-ring, a little bit on the threads and a little bit on that O-ring, and then you screw that in. You give a little squeeze to get past the O-ring past the first hole, and then screw it in all the way. You'll notice there's no gap between the regulator body and the actual regulator block. It's screw tight. You notice I haven't used any power tools or fancy grips or anything. It only needs to be hand tight. The O-ring does the sealing. It's not a case of the tighter it is, the better it seals. And like I said earlier, if you've screwed it on and there is a gap like that and you can't screw it on any further, it's probably because you've forgotten to take the O-ring out. Please please take the O-ring out and start again. Right, there we go, that's that. Then the toast rack fits back in there. Pull these out the way again. Then that fits on there. And then you get your 5mm Allen key again. I'm going to do another step here, which you probably won't need to do, but just in case. In fact, I'll just tighten this up and show you what I mean. At the moment, see, this has got a bit of play, and part number 38 is turning with the regulator. So because I've tightened it up, just to confirm, there we go, tighten it up, you can then use this as a lever while holding the action and just tighten it up, which then tightens that onto there. Then once you've done that, you then loosen this off a bit, turn that up, get it lined up. Once you're happy that it's lined up, you can tighten it back up again. Right, there we go, that's one HuMa regulator fitted. Now, if you've got a chronograph, you can get your chronograph out, fit your bottle, fit the action. Well, you don't actually need to fit the action in the stock for this bit, but fit your bottle, fill it up to 200, 232 bar, whatever you like, as long as it's more than the pressure that's written on the little bag, because obviously then it won't be regulating, and see what power it's doing. If it's too fast or too slow, this back cap on the export models literally should just unscrew. It's got a very fine thread on it, and it screws onto there. And in there you'll see there's an adjuster which adjusts the preload on the hammer spring. You don't have to have one of these, but it's a little tool that fits in there and makes adjusting it easy. If you don't have one of these, you can use a wide bladed screwdriver or something else. And basically you turn it clockwise to add preload, which increases the power, turn it anti-clockwise, which decreases the power, and basically chronograph it, see where it is, and set it where you're happy. If you want to, you can always put a drop of something on the adjuster to stop it adjusting if you're worried about it moving in use. It can happen, it's very seldom that it happens, but it can happen. And then once you're happy, screw the cap back on and put it back in the stock, and you're